So I've invited David Bowen to come here tonight. David is the son of Douglas and Jarlene Bowen of Spanish Fork and is the father to 3 children. He joined the Utah National Guard at age 17 and graduated from Spanish Fork High in 1999. From 2002 to 2004, he deployed with the Utah National Guard to Iraq. After returning home from Iraq, he gained employment with L3 Communications, where he worked on satellite communication systems from 2004 to 2013. David has been a law enforcement officer for nearly 6 years, starting in Draper, Utah. Then he worked as a patrol officer for Provo, and finally found his home at Spanish Fork Police Department in 2017. So let's give a big hand to David Bowen.
Thank you. On behalf of the Spanish Fork Police Department, we want to say thank you for inviting us and allowing us to be here. Mayor Steve Layson and Chief Adams believe highly in this and gave this opportunity to me, and thank you for letting me be here. A few things about the city that I want to go over. So Spanish Fork City has grown to approximately 44,000 citizens. Things that are going on in 2020, things to look that should be coming to conclusion on a good note. The new fire station, Station 62, is slated to be completed in 2020. And the new hospital over by the Walmart by I-15 is also slated to be completed in 2020. When in 2020, I don't know. That's above me, but I'm told 2020. Spanish Fork Police Department is comprised of 39 total officers. When I hired on in 2017, I was the 36th officer, so we're even up 2 years later by an additional 3 officers. So the city is growing, the department is growing, the police department is growing. Everything about Spanish Fork is good, positive growth, which is what the city wants and needs, I think. As far as patrol officers, we handle all initial calls and investigate everything from keep the pieces, which is people want us to stand by and be present for a multitude of different reasons, and we do that. Running at large animals, sometimes people have their animals off their leashes, and so we'll aid with that. And thefts at Walmart, and everything in between. After your patrol division, we have our detectives, and that's comprised of 1 lieutenant, 1 sergeant. We have 2 full-time detectives, 2 full-time drug detectives, and 4 full-time SROs. SROs are the school resource officers, and so they frequent the schools in the city, and they maintain presence there 24/7 in accordance to when school is in. As far as the detectives, the full-time detectives, they handle any and all types of investigations, from homicides down to bike thefts and everything in between as well. Specific things that the detectives do is they also manage the sex offender registry and sex offender compliance checks. Them, along with the SROs, will also they work on alcohol and tobacco underage purchases throughout the city at the different businesses that sell those types of products. One of the other things I was called to requested to speak about is things that we have going on in the city that may affect us, and more so maybe as an older generation. But I don't believe that it is strictly to an older generation. I think it's an everybody generation. It's frauds. We get calls from everybody, high school students to the 89 plus elderly man and woman at home. So it affects all of us, and we understand that. Frauds, just an example of the types of frauds that we deal with and things to be wary of and to look for. Number 1, your grandchild hasn't been arrested or was in an accident, is in desperate need of money from you. That's a big time fraud that they'll know a name and even date of birth of maybe your grandson or grandchild, granddaughter. They'll say, hey, they need this money now. It needs to be ASAP. And but don't hang up the phone either, because we got to get through this and get it now. And it's those types of things that should be running up red flags to you of, well, I just spoke to said grandchild and that doesn't seem like him, or how do I verify this information? But they won't let me off the phone to do that. Those are some interesting red flags that should be kind of popping up in your brain going, maybe I need to do some follow-up or some verification first. And with all of these, I would suggest if at any time you feel as though it is a fraud or an attempt to gain access to your personal information or family information or something along those natures, feel free to call us first. Those are the calls I love, when they say, hey, this is what was said, I just don't feel right about it, what do you think? And I'll say, well, that's interesting, because 5 other people just called me about the same thing, but they gave up some money or personal information or something like that. So don't fret, you can always call us and ask us, we would prefer it. Another one, said family member or even yourself, you probably don't have a warrant issued for your arrest, or at least if you do, I'm not calling you asking for you to pay money to me over the phone to take care of that. Also, property taxes and utilities, they kind of go in line with the warrant, which is, hey, I need this money from you now ASAP, but I'm calling you, so you don't really know who I am. Interestingly, I may be able to change my phone number to show as a Spanish Fork phone number. So there's spoofing apps, there's ways that you can change phone numbers or create your phone number to show as a phone number, even though that's not an accurate phone number for these types of things. Those are the harder ones because they make you think, oh, this is a Spanish Fork number. Of course it's whatever they're telling me is going on. That may also not be the case. By all means, hang up, call us, or call the said department that they're calling from and say, hey, I got this phone call, it seems weird. Do you know anything about it? Or is there a supervisor that I can speak with to talk to a little bit more about this? If it's accurate and you really do owe on your utilities or property taxes, or you do have a warrant, then we can go through the right channels and meet in person and deal with it. Hey, yeah, utilities or property taxes, or if you have a warrant, I'll tell you, go down to jail and pay it, or call the court and take care of it. It's all right. Your Social Security probably has not been hacked, especially when they need that immediate action from you, meaning, hey, I need this information. They should already have that information. Why are they calling you to gain the information they should already have? Again, red flags, should make your stomach kind of turn a little bit. Those red flags in your mind thinking, this is just weird, just odd, doesn't sound right. Pause, take a step back, ask somebody else. A lot of times when I ask people, I said, when you hear yourself telling me this, what do you think? Well, it sounds real fishy. I said, yeah, it does sound fishy, but why does it sound fishy now, but it didn't then? Well, now that I hear myself say it out loud, I kind of am gathering a little bit more of what was going on. I said, perfect. And sometimes that's what we need, whether it's to me, a friend, a spouse, a relative, a son, daughter, I don't know. Say it out loud to somebody and just see how it sounds. If it seems to be something that's fishy or hinky, it probably is. A lot of times when they call and they're wanting this money, they're wanting it through a Green Dot or prepaid credit cards, which the Green Dot is that type of a thing, or a Western Union or iTunes gift cards, and they want those numbers now. Once you provide those numbers, once you've gone through and you've made those purchases, however that transaction is going to be, and you provided them that number, that money is gone. It's not a very traceable fact after that. Once they have those numbers and that money is gone, it's out of the state and probably out of the country even. A lot of those, like I said earlier, they want you to remain on the phone. Don't call law enforcement. I think if somebody tells you that should be a huge red flag. Why would anybody not want you to call law enforcement? That seems odd. That's usually the first thing I tell anybody I know is, well, let's call law enforcement. So when somebody tells you that, or they want you to maintain on the phone, they're doing that because they don't want you to be able to say this out loud to somebody. And you think, wait a second, this is interestingly not right. One of the more recent ones I've had is the Facebook yard sale, selling a lot of the new Android and iPhone phones, the brand new ones that are like $1,100, $1,500 for maybe $300. A lot of times I'll tell people if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So be cautious. Everybody asks me, what can I do about that? I said, well, if they're not willing to meet you in person, I'm a personable person. I like to meet people face to face and talk to you and kind of gauge where we're at that way. And if somebody's unwilling to meet person to person, that might be a red flag. No, maybe not always, but depending. With those spoofing phone numbers, you can log online and create an account that says you live anywhere. So the Facebook accounts, more specifically, I can jump on and create one that says I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or someplace in Texas, or Springville, Utah, or Spanish Fork, Utah, and there's no way to verify that is or isn't the case. So just because it simply says that be a little mindful that might not be the case. There is no Nigerian prince that's going to send you a wealth load of money. If only you pay the transaction fee or you know, a upfront cost, or front the money for a minute in your account, and then they take it out, and then you're kind of left holding the bag of, well, how do I square up my account now? So be mindful of that. Frauds are mostly untraceable. Like I said earlier, once they have the money or the number for the money through wire transfers or other means, that money's gone. Once it's out of the state, probably out of the country, hinders us drastically from any continued investigation that we would be able to do. Again, the spoofing apps change phone numbers. Be cautious of that. You can copy phone numbers. They can make their phone number look like a local number or a nearby local number. So be careful of that. After people reported a fraud or a possible fraud, or they think they've been frauded, or maybe this could have happened, or what do you think about this? The follow-up question always seems to be the same. What do you think of how can I better protect myself? Or what could I better have done to safeguard myself from this? As we mentioned before, a lot of times just saying it out loud kind of lets you get the feel for it beforehand, hopefully before you're out any money or personal information. But if at any point you do believe that you're out money or personal information, what I always mention to people is contact your financial institution and make them aware. Make them aware that you may be the victim of fraud or possibly identity theft for XYZ reasons, and let them know you've already made and file a police report. Having that case number can be handy. They can give you further instructions on what you may or may not need to do, and that'll mostly protect you with your main financial institution and your money that you're dealing with day to day. A follow-up to that is credit reports. We're able to get 3 free credit reports per year. I think it's even 3freecreditreport.com or .org. You know, Google it online. But there's several ways. You can just do that way, but through my bank, they allow me to pull a credit report as well, one from one of the 3 bureaus. And also through my bank, I'm also able to freeze my credit report, which is amazing. Even when I forget that I've done it, and then I go to do something where I need my credit, they come back saying, "Hey, did you freeze your credit?" And it's funny because they know. And then I'm reminded, oh yeah, hold on a minute. And I'm able to quickly log on and change it, unfreeze it for the specified time that I want to use whatever I'm using my credit for. And then as soon as I'm done, I can go back on and lock it again. And I've personally found that it's an amazing safeguard. You control the access. And even when we forget that we've locked it, we're reminded when we want to be. With the credit bureaus, you can freeze your credit report as well. 90 days initially without any police report, and 180 days with a police report, or rather the case number that we would provide you when you call in. And you can freeze that with any of the 3 credit bureaus. Don't quote me on this, I'm not sure if you lock it with one, does it lock it to all 3? I believe it does, but when you call one of the 3 bureaus, maybe verify that information with them and say, does this lock across the board? I'm pretty confident that it does, but it'd be something to verify. Be smart and be aware. Again, just kind of think about it in your head and what you're thinking, and if you're thinking it's weird, it is. Again, contact your local police. We have a non-emergency number. I apologize, I don't have it offhand, but we have a non-emergency number you can call, and you can just talk to us. Hey, Officer Bowen, what do you think about this? And I'll say, well, that's cool, but probably not a Nigerian prince, you know. And those are some of the ones that I've run across in probably the last week to 2 weeks. So that's a lot of our recent ones. They change, they adapt, they get really good. The way I envision it in my mind is individuals trying to fraud us out of money or personal information. It's their full-time job. And like any of us at our full-time jobs, we want to be good at our full-time jobs. My impression is they believe the same. They want to be good or great at their full-time jobs. So it's our job to not let them be, but don't be completely blown away when they are really good at their full-time jobs. And they're able to create and change and adapt. A lot of the online presence in the world doesn't aid law enforcement. An example of that is I don't know if it's going to be called an app or an app. It's called KIK, I believe KIK. It's Canadian based. They don't recognize United States warrants, so they won't work with us at all because they don't recognize the warrants even issued. So we kind of come across a big stone block at that point. We can't move forward with the investigation because we can't get the information. That's a lot of times what happens with these types of things. So if we're able to safeguard and keep ourselves safe here, that's going to aid in law enforcement, not even having to hit those brick walls where we know we're going to hit them. So be safe, be smart, be aware. That's what I have as far as the city growth and where we're at, where we're going. I know the city has a lot more than that, but I'm giving you the information that I know I can give you versus the maybe this or maybe that Seth Perrins, our city manager, doesn't love when we give out information that's, it could be this or could be that. He says, it's just rumor at this point until some of it happens, but the ones that we know that are the actuality are good to know and where we're at as a city. That's what I have for you for frauds, for the city growth and how we can protect ourselves. I think at this point, we're going to do question and answers. To do that, they've asked, I think we'll pass the mic around, and that's so the Channel 17 can get you on there. So it may not sound like it's broadcasting, but it's picking up on them. So if you have a question, we'll pass this around, and I'll do my best to give out the answers I have. One of the schemes that we've been privy to was people calling, saying that they're the IRS, and that you have a judgment against you and you need to pay that. Have you gotten calls about that recently, or is that something that you're hearing too? Great question. I haven't had them recently, but I bet we will. Seeing as we're at the first of the year, W-2s are out by the 31st this month and taxes are coming up. I think that's a great preventative question right there. Yes, you're probably going to hear that. As far as that, I don't know the phone number off of hand, but there is going to be an IRS online contact or phone number that you could call to verify that information. I think for the most part, most of us would know or should know whether that's going to be accurate or not. And I might be a little incorrect on that. Maybe we don't know and it is a surprise. I'm sure those do happen. But if they do contact you or call you with that information, you could call us and document it. I'm not going to know one way or the other because I unfortunately, and I wish I did, I don't have any IRS access or information. Granted, it'd be awesome if they gave that to me, but I don't think they're going to. So I don't have a way to access that other than, by all means, I could Google the information or the phone number or the online to say, hey, who can I call? But there should be a local, within the state of Utah, IRS number or contact information that we can get a hold of and contact. My guess is up in Salt Lake to ask more specifically about that. Hey, this is the phone call I got. If you do get that phone call, like we said before, I wouldn't provide them with the information. They should already have that information. And a lot of times be careful of, well, I need you to verify this information for me. Great, what information? Well, you need to tell me. Well, there's our problem, And being at a standstill at that point, it's okay. And the real IRS is going to recognize and understand that and say, hey, here's our office numbers, feel free to call back in, or go ahead and research it and find our number. We're online and contact us back through that way and go get a hold of us, and we can verify this information to be true or true, correct, or incorrect. So one of the things that happened, at least for us when this occurred, was they said the IRS will never call you. Yeah. They will only send you a letter in the mail. I've never been contacted in person by the IRS. I don't know, but I do believe that to be correct as well. I've only ever received information via mail system, and all of that has ways to contact them. So I think that's a very good point. And I would go out to say most of our government agencies, that's the case. Now, I might call you for other reasons, or if you called me, I'm going to call you back. But a lot of times when people question it, hey, I don't know if you're really the police. I understand. Here's my 911 number, our non-emergency number. Feel free to contact back through dispatch. This is my name, Officer Bowen. Ask for me, and they'll patch you back through to me. If I'm true and correct of who I am, you'll find me. And if not, you won't, and then you'll know. So that's a great question, great follow-up. Appreciate it. That's a great question. Was that, they wanted the donations for something specific? Do you remember who it was?
I want to say it was like that. It's either United Order of Police Workers or Firefighters. or something. I don't know what the heck it was.
You know, those do exist. To say whether your phone call or not was a correct and real one versus somebody creating that as a fraud, I don't know.
But the police really call and ask for money?
No, not me.
No, the police department. Yeah.
The department itself, no, the department itself wouldn't call and ask for money. If it was an organization, Fraternal Order of Police, I don't know that they do that or not, but the department itself would not, no. If it's one of these organizations looking for donations, possible, but you're never going to get, this is Spanish Fork Police Department, yada, yada, yada. You know, it should be in some organization, and this is what we do, this is what we're looking for. Here's further information to find out contact information about us. This is my number back to me. If you're interested, give me a call back. And that way it gives you time to kind of fact check it a little bit and see if it's a true organization or not. Better Business Bureau. I know you can go online and search businesses, and organizations like that should fall up under that as well, the nonprofits. So you should be able to Google and look up through the BBB to verify that they're a true organization or business. So great question.
And then one more question.
Yeah.
What's the chances of catching the bad guys with all these calls you were talking about before?
Yeah.
Is there, I mean, you cut flying brand, I mean,
You know, I don't know the percentages on catch them versus not. I do know a lot of times what hinders this is we don't have an actual suspect to go after. You know, if I give you a fake name, fake phone number, there's not any correct information for me to go after. And so a lot of, once we've given that information or given the number to the money, that's why I say once it's out of the state, out of the country, I don't have a way to track it. Nor do these, the Western Unions, they can semi-track theirs. They'll tell you where it went, and you can know what part of wherever in the nation or in the world it went. But the trackability becomes an issue pretty quick. So unfortunately, I want to say it's a low likelihood. We just don't have good suspect information to go off of. If we do have suspect information to go off of, we'll pull those strings until we hit roadblocks. You know, one thing I didn't mention, just because I think it's kind of cool, with the police department and detectives, facial recognition software. They just got it. It's something that I haven't experienced yet, but my detective just told me, hey, so if we have a good, you know, that doesn't help with the phone call stuff, but the in-person stuff, if we have a good picture, our likelihood is at least higher. So great question, though.
Can I ask a question off of fraud, different?
You sure can.
I'm just curious how Spanish Fork is doing with regards to drug addiction, like in our schools.
Yeah.
You know, as far as opioids versus the even worse ones like
Yeah.
heroin and such, with kids in high school versus people out of school.
We're doing amazing. I think that's a great question. I think my personal belief is that's the place we can affect change. I think it's important that we have that many full-time school resource officers for that reason. Not just specifically the drug issues. I think for all facets that they are over in the schools, but it's my personal belief and what I've seen working as a police officer that that's where we can get the best and most effective change is in our youths. That's the time that they're going to change if they're going to. As far as a little bit more specific to your question, it's still present. Where we're at, you know, above or below or rising or lowering, I don't specifically know. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I do know that our school resource officers that are in the schools are very, very good and versed at what they're doing. The drugs, the school issues, the mental health issues, the homework issues, just everything that is brought to them. They're the Boy Scout knife if I've ever seen one. You know, for the youth, they really have to have kind of everything because they're dealing with all of the kids in the school. They're dealing with the adults, being the teachers and the principal and the assistants, and they've got to be able to work just wonders with everybody. And I know they do a great job and a wonderful job. Where we're at specifically on numbers, unfortunately I don't know to tell you that it's higher or lower. I'll talk to our admin secretaries and see where we're at, see if we can't find out that information, if it's something that's being tracked or not. I do know
By comparison to, say, you know, the surrounding cities.
better
Better.
than the surrounding cities, emphatically. I say that because of my love for Spanish Fork. I truly do believe we are better than the other cities, And I'm not saying that to knock the other cities. I think we have great surrounding cities, but I do believe Spanish Fork is an amazing city. I'm homegrown from here, and I love working here. So I do believe we're better than the others. Numbers wise, though, I unfortunately just don't know. And I don't know if I think that's a great question. I don't know that we pose that on a trackable level with the other schools or cities. That's a question I'll bring up to Chief Adams and see if that's something that we think would be a positive thing for us to know and find out. In lieu of also, if somebody else is better, what are they doing to advocate for that? I think is a great question. So unfortunately, I don't know numbers wise specifically. I apologize. I'll ask Chief Adams about it, and I think we'll look into it a little bit. I think that's a great question.
I don't have a question, but I know there's another couple of similar scams that's going on around right now that has to do with the internet.
Yeah.
I have been hit 3 different times with one that claimed they were with Apple,
Mm-hmm.
one with Google,
Mm-hmm.
and there's one other one, Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, I have a daughter that showed me what to look for on Facebook if it comes from one of those companies, which you generally it never will.
Yeah.
But there's certain things to look on there and see, and you can tell right off the bat that it's a scam. So you have to really look at their, not only the logo, but where that's actually coming from.
Were these emails?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll have numbers on it that should never be there, and Apple and them do not do it that way. So
You mean like in where it was sent from, the email address? Yeah. No, that's, I think, a great question. We probably don't get as many calls along those types of lines, but they do exist for sure. I think that's a great point. If these companies are emailing you, an example is that Facebook yard sale I was telling you about, where the phone's for cheaper, and meet somebody in person. But also, if it's we have these businesses that we know are good businesses, and they're good and reputable for a reason. They have good customer support. They have actual customer support. If they're emailing you, which we all get those emails, the spam emails, and hey, what about this? What about that? I think that's a great point. Look in the email header. I didn't know about the numbers thing, but I believe that would make sense if it's an email from Google or Amazon or Apple, and then you've got just a trail of numbers off of it. Most likely, probably an incorrect email, and probably not so much, not good information is going to come from it. Another cautious about that is if there's information in that email of call us at this number or email us at this address, I'd be a little bit wary of that as well. I did hear of one where it was an airline, and the lady had booked her airline flight, paid for it, and then the airline called her back and said, oh, there was an issue. We need to change stuff. And they sent her the email link. So she called them off of the email link, but it was not the phone number to the airline, it was a phone number to a scammer. And so they didn't get any money from her, but they did get some of her name and address and some information like that. And after a little bit, these red flags went up. She realized, hey, maybe this isn't such a positive thing. So she quickly hung up from that, went back online and couldn't find that web page again after that, and found the real one and contacted him. And luckily, she wasn't outmoneyed. The flight was still good to go. She just had personal information questions, and that was a lot of the things that we hit of contacting your financial institution and your credit report and making them aware. So yeah, that's there's the in-person frauds that they're calling us, but there's also the email stuff. So yeah, be wary of all of those.
My wife, I forget if it was a call or online, I think it was a phone call, said your credit card from such and such has been scammed. Please call this number.
Yeah.
And she got thinking, well, if it's a credit card scam from this bank, why would I call this number? So she turned over her credit card and called that number on the back of the credit card.
Yeah.
They said, no, we didn't call you, that's a scam.
Yep.
I'm glad she was smart enough. I would have fallen for it.
Yeah, that's a good thing we have our significant others in our life. For us men that have our wives by our side, that's why we have them. A great example. We're given one number, but means to verify that it's correct or incorrect. Again, take a second, pause, and think, okay, can I verify this in something that I already have? And again, turn the credit card over and they all have the number. Why wouldn't I just call that directly? I'm with you. That seems to be the easiest fix. I'd do that. And yeah, so, I mean, if you can think it, they're coming up with scams left and right of anything and everything, unfortunately. From Mayor Steve Leifson and Chief Steve Adams and myself, Officer Bowen, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys having these meetings and allowing me to come and speak with you today. And I hope we had good questions and answers and good answers to our questions. And again, just to reiterate, if you come up with something even after that, feel free to contact us through even our non-emergency numbers to say, hey, officer, or even give us a heads up of a scam. Sometimes I get a phone call and, hey, this just happened. I'm not out any money, but I wanted you to know. And interestingly enough, I'll get another 5 or 6 phone calls that same day of the same type of thing. So at least sometimes I have that heads up of, okay, this is the most recent scam for some reason going around in our city. And when people call in, we can say, yeah, yep, it's happening. You know, don't give them information or money, and be a little cautious we're that way. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the invitation.